IT Hero Podcast Show. Thank you everyone for tuning in to IT Hero Podcast Show. Now we are on episode 5 and I'm super excited. We reached episode 5. Yay. And in today's show, we have someone who is joining all the way from Canada, who is a cloud evangelist, a technical lead. And I have named the show and I got the name from the guest itself. It's called From Legacy to GCP. And the reason for that, you'll get to know in a bit while. So let's go ahead and give a big round of applause and welcome Stacy Véronneau on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a great honor to be guest number 5.
Awesome. Thanks, Stacy, for accepting the offer. And it's a great privilege having you on the show. I'd like to start with the first question. You have started your career as a system admin at least 15 to 20 years back. So right now you're in a DevOps role. I think system plus programming is called as a DevOps role right now. I'd like to hear from you. Have you seen the changes in DevOps, or how do you see the flow that's going in the industry right now?
Yeah, and good question. And the and thanks for saying 20 years. It just does, like, it keeps me young. So but for your question, like, yes, the like initially like sysadmin and programmer, and then like right now there's that old DevOps movement / methodology. Recruiters try to tag it as a position, but it started as something. It's not just a job description. And if you just compare the two in the way things are happening, like let's say back in the day, way before, basically like a sysadmin with a programming background is somebody who was coding his thing, is his own little box, doing his own thing with whatever, like, hey, this tooling, this way of doing it, no peer review, no whatever. There's like, it's me doing my stuff because I'm the sysadmin, and that's it. If you look at the way things are going right now, it's like it's really more about like sysadmins, classic core sysadmins, adapting to basically being, hey, everything you did, all your bash script, all your whatever script you created, you're coding anyway, like, and follow the same principles as, let's say, developers are doing. Maybe follow this, like leverage the same IDEs, same ways of working.
Yeah.
Put your stuff in source control. Have maybe a peer review. Say, hey, don't put your password, don't hardcode your password in your shell, man. That might be an issue. But basically, right now, that DevOps or DevSecOps approach that everybody's trying to embrace and implement as a methodology just unifies the way we work. So yes, you can go coding. Of course, like, I'm not going to go and code some Node.js stuff because I don't, but I can actually leverage the same patterns in my head while I use my IDE and produce codes that's going to be leveraged, by anybody else. It's like you're no longer coding for yourself, you're coding for everybody. So, which is something, honestly, like way back, was more about like, the IT guy did this thing and then just like try to figure it out. Like, there's no comment and everything is in his head. So right now it's more about bringing this as a whole, so everybody can leverage it. My 2 cents on what's going on.
Understood. Thanks, Stacy. I think so. It started from like self-centered. Now it's more like process-centered or team-centered approach these days. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're in a startup with like 5 people, or you're the only person maybe that startup will go from 1 to 20 to have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's more around, like, I don't want to say standard, but I just said it, but it's setting up following like agile / DevOps or DevSecOps, saying, okay, well, there's a way of working, and kind of like guardrails, like this is your best practice on like the way you should actually produce code if you're a sysadmin or a programmer. So try to it's not putting people in the box, but it's setting up expectation in terms of, if somebody new comes in, they should be able to look at your code and understand exactly what you were doing.
Yeah.
And not wonder, it's like, what is this? Why all the variables are just 1 letters and there's no comments? Like, I don't even know what's going on. So
Got you. Thanks. Now, moving on to the next question that I have is about the recent certifications you did with Hashicrop. So, how was your exam, and would you like to share your exam preparation strategy?
Sure, sure. Right off the bat, I'm a big Hashicrop fan. I don't think nobody is actually. Everybody's a fan of Hashicrop. Everybody loves Vault. Everybody loves Terraform. Uh, People are using Packer to create their golden images, and well, their tooling is awesome, and everybody's using that. Um, I've I'm still Vault certified from 2020. So what I did for the Terraform one was basically kind of following a similar approach. Um, it's toolings, right? So if it's something that you've learned, you use on a regular basis, well, it's kind of easy to say, oh yeah, I do a Terraform on my little side, and then blah blah. I know my stuff, and everything is good. Um, but the certification, if you look at what Hashicrop is giving you to prep, it's way more than just knowing that, hey, I downloaded the binary and then I'm doing my stuff, and then oh, maybe I'm using workspaces, and then woohoo. But no, there's way more in that ecosystem. There's the enterprise version, there's the cloud version. What's the difference between all of those? It's really understanding Terraform as not just a tool, but also as an ecosystem of products, because in the end, if you're paying for it, if you're going like the paid path, there's a reason for it. Or even Hashicrop, like the cloud, Terraform Cloud, which is free, there's a
Yeah.
free tier, there's a reason for it and what's happening there. So the path I've used to prep was similar to what I did with Vault, meaning that uh, I went with all the hands-on labs from Linux Academy, Cloud Guru, and well, actually now they're the same. Uh, so and also looking at the like docs.hashicorp.com/ let's say Terraform, and then whatever platform of choice you have, a bunch of stuff there you can go through. Also the practice
Hmm.
test is always like, if it's a tool, practice tests will go outside of the boundaries of your comfort zone,
Mm.
where you always do the same thing, and then say, oh yeah, but how do you actually like remove, like I remove something from GCP manually, and then I want to reflect it in the states. I say, oh yeah, oh, can I do a refresh? Like, there's some new commands sometimes that you never use, and well, those are going to be in the exam. So those practice tests for me were the best thing to expose me to scenarios like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Let me actually go read the documentation, and that's how I said, everywhere I fail, I just go back and read again and understanding it. Say, what's the goal of this, and what's the use case, and
Hmm.
just understanding it. Um, it's not about just understanding how Terraform OSS works, but it's
Hmm.
the entire ecosystem. So it's a product. So using it
Yeah.
on a regular basis helps. If you're starting fresh, well, all those prep courses from Linux Academy or whatever website you want to go
Yeah.
will help you get there. And if you're just starting with Terraform, the
Hmm.
actual Hashicrop website is good for
Okay.
that, because there's a good track for that to just to get you going. So if you're an AWS person, like in my case, I'm a GCP person, there's a GCP track. How do
Yeah.
I spin my first compute with GCP? So then you understand.
Yeah.
Then from there, you can just move along and kind of ramp up. But my approach on certification is always the same. It's like hands-on, practice test, and
Yeah.
then where did I fail? Go back and study, and then start again. At one point, you have to stop doing practice tests because now your brain knows the answer, and that's you're not helping yourself. At one point, you have to say, okay, I'll take the bullet, bite the bullet. You go, you do it, you pass or fail, but you have to be comfortable with that. So that's the process.
Yeah. I think practice is the key, and yeah. So
Always.
I like the phrase when we said bite the bullet. So yeah, people should practice in a way that they get the answers subconsciously or unconsciously. They know the answers when they practice more. Right. Now, I have a specific question with AWS now. I know you've started your career. I mean, when AWS has launched a product, I think you started on like an early adopter and you worked on the services very early on. So could you tell us how the product is evolving right now? Do you see more and more services or making the product complex, or how does it work?
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm sure that if any of my colleagues are listening in on this podcast, it's just going to be super laughing. Say, "Oh, Stacy's going to talk about AWS like he's always the GCP guy." It's going to be super funny. But yeah, I started in I spun my first compute node in 2007.
Okay.
So basically, if you look at and this was like, of course, previous life, and this was like, hey, let's say Dev QA into the cloud. And then, well, pre-prod and prod were racked in a data center, and they were there, but the dev and QA boxes were like glorified servers. Like you buy a PC, then you just call it server one. It doesn't make it a server. The name says it's a server though, but it's gonna die in 3 months because you ask too much of it, and then you have to buy something else. So the arrival of AWS and, well, that cloud offering really helped the company I was in to shift the cost to OpEx instead of CapEx by taking those dev and QA servers out of the closet that was the server room and just focus on having real production machine and data centers and the rest in the cloud. Of course, there was many things at the time, like 2007, we didn't even have persistent storage, which is kind of obvious, right? Like, hey, maybe I want to keep data. So nope. So that, yeah, EBS was not a thing. Like elastic block storage was not a thing. So so in terms of answering your question, like I took a super long detour to get there. I mean, like the evolution of AWS right now, it brings it, like there's no way around it, meaning like they're number one in terms of utilization, and the offering is mind-boggling. I always make the same stupid joke, and I'm gonna do it again, which is way back when, you said 20 years, website that always add that little thing at the bottom, like this site is best viewed in 800 by 600, which is the resolution you should see it, which is what, 800 or 600. But you feel like if you go on the AWS website, if you don't have a 4K monitor, 4K res, you won't. It's like, I'm not seeing anything. Like there's way too much stuff. So for somebody who's starting their journey in the cloud, that complexity can be like super hard. So like, what's going on here? Like maybe I just want to spin a VM. Like why the flow is maybe too complex, or so there's nowhere around the maturity level of like what AWS is bringing. But in the end, if you compare with other cloud players, Google is Google. I'm not gonna try to pitch Google and sell it, but I mean, like if you're starting your journey, maybe start small, but there's no, it makes it easy. Again, like if you're like just comparing apples to apples on the GCP side, well, naming conventions are, somebody can say boring, but they're also obvious. So I would like to, I don't know, what's DNS, cloud DNS? Oh, okay, cool, thanks. So that's kind of that's kind of obvious. So I mean, like the where AWS is at right now, their offering is so big that I feel that somebody who's starting their cloud journey right now can be overwhelmed. And maybe sometimes like a simpler path can bring, and everybody needs to know more than one cloud. Like and we're gonna probably get there at one point that we're talking hybrid or multi-cloud. But if you start your journey, just look at the platform where, if you look at it, you look at demos, and then go with the one you're more comfortable with. So AWS is a monster in terms of offering, and it keeps on adding at every reinvent. There's 20 more services. But that's part of their offering, but also brings the complexity. But that's my 2 cents. Like somebody who's AWS fan say, "Oh, what are you talking about?" But but I started there, and it's there's nowhere around the offering of AWS again. But that's me trying to answer your question.
Yeah, I understood. Yeah. Now, the more and more services it actually makes complex, and people who start out their cloud journey definitely gets it overwhelming. Now you settle with GCP and you're a cloud ambassador for GCP, I should say. Now, why did you settle with GCP, or did GCP get you?
Well, actually, if I go if I look at how did I end up on GCP, say it goes with my tech journey, or it's not even a cloud journey. It's like I started with AWS on 2007. I've changed job. That job was more, let's leverage private cloud with like VMware, stuff like that. Then I started to look at OpenStack, which is something NASA, Rackspace, you can build private or public clouds. This brought me somewhere else. And there was a tool, and of course I'm drawing a blank, and they got bought by Oracle. Basically what they were offering you is that and I'm just gonna go back 2 seconds on the OpenStack piece. OpenStack, if you build a private cloud, that you need hardware, right? I need physical servers somewhere. I can just like carve out VMs from a public cloud and just say, hey, I'm going to make a control plane and control like VLAN tagging on, like, that doesn't work. Those guys, which name just came back, and they were called Revello. Basically, one of the founder was one of the guy who actually wrote KVM, which is kind of, okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. So that solution basically created a wrapper around public cloud offering, AWS or GCP, where you actually add that control of be able to segregate network and do VLAN tagging, which was a requirement to install OpenStack. So, and I was amazed at the speed I could spin up resources in GCP versus AWS. And it's like, whoa, what's going on? And also, main thing, Google at core, it's still KVM, like the hypervisor, right? Of course, it's their tweaked up version, and maybe now they on some offering, there's no hypervisor at all, and you're just tackling specific elements. But that just really drew me there. And then my tool, Revello, was performing super great on GCP. So I was doing my fake OpenStack, like bare metal, leveraging public cloud, which was something I was never thought possible, because that layer they were adding I was able to do, here's my control plane, here's my compute. In the end, it's all on GCP. I don't have any control over it, but I'm able to segregate network and bootstrap, like Pixie boot a compute. Just for people that just try to Pixie boot, like you have a Pixie boot stick or something, try to do that with an AWS instance. Like, that doesn't work. But actually, that tool was allowing you to bootstrap an ISO file to install the entire stack. It was like, but on a public cloud instance. Like, okay, that's awesome. And the fact that GCP was my go-to platform within that ecosystem just kind of led me to the next job, who kind of starting to mix both platforms. I was doing OpenStack and GCP. And that was it, like the first baby steps from the Reveller stuff to the next. I just went all in, and through the job before, I was able to go through a program within Google Cloud, where partners are brought up to kind of understand the way things are going with Google Cloud, and then you're just looped in. Like, if I were to tell you, well, it's kind of like, hey, you want to do a 6 months internship at Azure or AWS to understand the way we work and work alongside us and deliver with us? Like, yeah, sure. Like, that would be a great experience. Like, even maybe if at the beginning I suck at it, I'll learn so much when they bring you in the mothership, right? So that's kind of what led me all to GCP. And at one point said, well, I did OpenStack and then GCP, but now with the position I'm in right now, it's just like, hey, full on GCP. That's all I do. That's my entire focus. So that's again a long answer, but that's what brought me to GCP. Is that it's those decisions that leads you to a cloud platform, and that would be similar for everybody who's say, hey, which one should like play with them all? There's one you actually like better, focus on that one. Path of least resistance.
Got it. Yeah. That's a very descriptive answer. Thanks, Stacy. Now,
Okay.
now since you worked on both on-prem and right now you're more focused on cloud, and do you think multi-cloud is the thing right now? Do you see a lot of adoptions in multi-cloud model?
There is, well, that's a good question. And actually, if you look at what's going on right now, like it's like everything else. There's always trends. Before multi-cloud or anything else, like people saying like we put everything in Kubernetes because it's awesome. It's coming from Google. Let's put it all there. Say, yeah, but your workload is not tailored to be in Kubernetes. I don't care. Like they say that this is where we need to go. Is like, yeah, well, you still need to make you need some due diligence, like read what's going on and what's your use case. Like, does this actually solve for your use case, like Kubernetes? So going back to multi-cloud or hybrid, depending on which path you're tackling, will will have a huge impact. And again, like it's something that people want to do. And that's how we see that companies are actually adopting more than one cloud for their as a solution. So yes, there is an adoption and growth in adoption of multi-cloud strategies, saying that, hey, well, take the cloud that's best tailored to your workloads, right? If you're an Azure shop, or not the Azure shop, but good, just small example. If a company is like more Microsoft focused, like
Mhm.
everything they do, Azure AD, Azure DevOps for their pipeline and everything, well,
Mhm.
Azure as a cloud kind of is a natural fit.
Yeah.
But then they say, oh yeah, but we really want like super powerful, like data AI ML. Yeah, well, Google kind of kills it in that area. So let's make sure we leverage both. So it's in the best interest of
Yeah.
any company that's put their eggs in one basket. So yes, there is a huge trend
Mhm.
and interest on the multi-cloud and hybrid track right now. But like anything else, you need to do your homework.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Now, looking at this trend, do you see jobs like system admin or Linux admin will vanish because we see the shrink in the number of data centers, right? So everybody's going to cloud now. So what could happen for a system admin or a Linux admin or a storage admin in future?
Well, and that's interesting because in the end, all of those positions, they're not vanishing; they're evolving, they're
Mm.
transforming. A Linux admin, well, if you're a Linux admin, you still have VMs with Linux running on the cloud, or that you might have stuff running on compute, and Linux is still Linux. The fact that it's on a compute instance doesn't really change much.
Mm.
What you need to do though is that if you're a Linux admin slash sysadmin, it's like, hey, what do I need to sysadmin for? Maybe it's Kubernetes. So starting to understand that ecosystem on the infrastructure side, meaning like how do I interact with the API? If somebody say, hey, I need a new node pool or something, like you need to adapt to go there. Storage is the same thing. Many cloud providers have their own storage offering for
Yeah.
like SSDs or whatever, but also they have like specific alliances with some storage vendor, let's say like, I don't know, like NetApp, who's with GCP, where say, hey, you need super fast object store or file storage that goes beyond what Google is offering. Well, Google has a partnership with them, say, hey, well, we have a specific offering, and those are not cheap, but they're still cheaper than having a NetApp appliance in your data center. So, but it's still NetApp. Like if you're familiar with NetApp and OnTap and all those things to talk about,
Yeah.
you'll have the same experience, but it's just like it's not racked in your data center. It's part of your cloud offering. So again, it's about evolution. It's like where are things are going. Like a network admin was freaking out about SDN coming in because I can program your switch without just by, oh, my cloud platform is actually telling your switch what to do. It's like, what? Well, my job is dead. No, your job is to actually learn what's going on, so you become that network, the cloud network expert. You just evolve with the time. That's the key. Like if there's anything people want to go from like, hey, I'm legacy to GCP, right? So adapt. You need to adapt or you'll be stuck in a rut. And we see the trends, and well, sometimes you'll let one pass by, But some are obvious that, okay, well, everybody's going there. If I really want to evolve, either I accept my fate or I just go and adapt and evolve myself. So,
Got it. The message is evolve and adapt. So if that's not happening, you're going to stuck in the rack. Yeah, that's a nice message. Thanks, Stacy. Now, I think this could be the final question for this podcast. So, do you have any advice for someone who has always worked on on-prem and now they're trying to move into cloud, or they're trying to become, a cloud enthusiast? So, how would you encourage them? What are the learning path for them?
yeah, and it's sort of, sorry, the allergies are picking my nose. But I think it's a good segue question from the previous one, right? It's like
Yeah.
like Linux admin, the storage admin, and so on, and so forth. So basically, if somebody said, "Hey, well, I'm more of a like, if I'm a classic data center IT guy or person, uh, you know, how do I actually get in that craziness of cloud? Where do I go?" Uh, if somebody wants to evolve in those positions and say, well, I want to be a solution architect, like a cloud solution architect, like what's the path? Like I said it before, like adapt. You need to adapt. Also, I said that also like before, like pick a cloud platform that you feel comfortable with.
Mm.
In the end, I'll say that again, that the platform themselves, like there's no like, oh, this one sucks and this one's awesome. Like depending on what you want to do, the workloads you want to bring in, target can change. Can be GCP, can be AWS, can be Azure, can be anything else. Can be on-prem, maybe. So adapting to the cloud trend is really important if you're starting from zero, and that goes pick the platform you're comfortable with and then practice. You say, well, how do I practice where like I'm not hired as a solution architect or as an engineer?
Yeah.
Taking the solution architect path as an example, if you want to kind of mimic, sometimes I come up with fake use cases on my whiteboard and I try to actually implement them properly, but also implement them the way a customer would like for me to implement them, which means like infrastructure as code. And so do a bit of Terraform and then like do your thing. Maybe you don't have to start with Terraform, of course, because that's another thing you have to add on top. But I mean, just try to, okay, how would I solution this? Like, I want to do this, like, oh, it would like this service, this is connecting like that. If I look, again, going to my cloud of choice, if I go with Google Cloud, like if you go to cloud.google.com, I think it's /solutions, you already have solution patterns designed for you to consume. It's like if you want, I don't know, if you want to solve for healthcare, for whatever data ingestion flow, whatever, this is what the services flow would look like, and they explain it to you. Well,
Okay.
maybe you want to recreate that and follow by mimicking what you see that came up from Google. It's like this must be good. Let's follow that and understand that's if you don't have the job, but that's the job you want to get, the best way to do that is to try to replicate it, even though it's in your own environment.
Yeah.
Google is giving you $300 for free when you create a new account.
Yeah.
Leverage that. If you want more than $300, then sorry Google, but just create a new mailbox. Then you have a new $300. Like everybody's doing that. It's not a surprise, but I mean, like leverage those free credits and go as much as you can. Get involved in your community. You want to do Google stuff? There's always Google communities on Slack or meetups and everything. Go meet the people and get involved. Like it's like it's cross pollination, right? Like you just everybody's meeting everybody, even though we can't really right now. But I mean, like leverage those networks and get you. That's gonna get you pulled in and ramp up your game. That's the only way you'll. But again, one thing I can say is that yes, it seems like a lot.
Mhm.
Like it's like drinking from a fire hose. Like there's a lot to absorb in one shot.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's like. I know it's a bad joke, but I mean, it's like, how do you eat an elephant, right? It's like one bite at a time, right? Take the time to, of course, don't eat elephants, but, but I mean, like, it is a massive undertaking to go
Yeah.
down that path. So chunk it out in pieces that you can tackle, and reach out. Again, community is there for that. There's a huge community around Google. There's a brand new website that came up for that also. AWS, same thing. Azure also. There's so many things. People like you doing podcasts. There's always listen to the podcast, listen to what's out there. There's so many sources of information. So just start with the trends. Go pick a cloud platform. Understand that it's more than just the cloud platform. It's also about the entire software lifecycle. Like if you're a solution architect, like say, you need to know CI/CD, like the entire flow of creating an artifact, deployment. We've talked about DevOps a bit. Like that's the things. Like whatever you do, everybody feels like they need to know how the code flow works and how things are deployed. And people are gonna, if we create this artifact, how do we deploy things to production, to dev, to QA? Like what's the flow? What's the approval flow? All of this, again, like going back to the elephant analogy, like it's a massive undertaking, but small steps, and start by picking up the platform that's the best fit for you. And there's anything, reach out. That's why we're all here. That's what you do. That's what I do. It's you're never alone in that journey, even though you feel sometimes we're alone, but like we have so many ways of reaching out to each other. Leverage those trainings. Keep an eye out on those like killer sales on Udemy or whatever. It's like, 90% off. Like, well, maybe it's a good training, so just go and do that. So that kind of sums it up. Hope it's it's good. It's a good answer.
Yes, Stacy. It's an awesome session, and it's like hearing from the horse's mouth. And I really like the enthusiasm that you carried out throughout the podcast. I am really honored, and the answers that we got from you were very descriptive. And I hope the listeners also got a very good idea about what's going on in the market and how can they leverage all the utilities out there. So most of it is free. So make sure you use it. And let's give a big round of applause for Stacy again for staying with us in the episode 5. Thank you so much, Stacy.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was a great experience. First podcast, probably, hopefully not the last one. So.
Oh, great.
Thanks again.
Thank you. And congratulations. It's Canada Day over there. So you're in red shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, red shirt. A bit of Quebec there for my Quebec peeps. So yeah. Thank
awesome. Thank you. See you around. Bye.
Right.
IT Hero Podcast Show.